How does a phone know exactly where your finger is touching? You've probably wondered that, right? Great question. We'll answer that at the end, but stay tuned. There are more good ones first. Let's move on. So what is parboiled rice? If you've ever checked rice packages at the supermarket, you've probably seen some labeled as parboiled. The English word comes from combining partial and boiled. Partial means part, boiled means cooked in water. So literally, it's rice that's been partially boiled, hence parboiled. But what does that mean in practice? Rice is a seed, kind of like wheat. It grows inside a husk, and the rice we buy has already been removed from that husk. To get there, rice has to be hulled. Usually, grains with the husk go through a machine that rubs it off. The problem is, during this process, a lot of grains end up breaking. So people came up with a way to toughen the rice before hulling it. That's when it's boiled. The boiling softens the grain, but afterward it becomes stronger and less likely to break. Another big plus is that some of the nutrients from the husk move into the grain itself. So it steals some of the husk's nutrients. One more benefit, parboiled rice sticks less to the pan. It cooks up fluffier and easier to handle. But honestly, I have to confess, I'm not a big fan of eating parboiled rice. To me, it just tastes less flavorful, not sure why. The texture doesn't please me the same way regular rice does, but that's just personal taste. There's nothing wrong with parboiled rice. Now, the higher you go, the thinner the air gets, right? So if a rocket keeps burning fuel to generate thrust, where does it get the air to burn once there's no air left? Oh man, I'm gonna break this again. For the 28th time, I'm about to drop this rocket on the floor. That's right. Here it is, the Saturn V, the rocket that took humans to the moon. And I've told you guys plenty of times, the part where the crew actually stays is just this tiny tip. Only this section here. The rest is pretty much fuel. Well, that's simplifying it a bit. It's not only fuel, of course. Here's a simplified diagram of the first stage of this rocket, the very first stage. It's this section right here, okay? It's the first part that gets discarded as the rocket climbs. Inside, you can see two tanks. One says liquid oxygen tank, and the other says rocket propellant 1 tank. Rocket propellant 1 means RP1, which is rocket propellant number 1. And that's nothing more than a super purified kerosene. Kerosene so clean, it won't interfere with combustion. During flight, the other tank holds liquid oxygen. Yes, oxygen in liquid form. So, to answer the question, what's in the rocket? Is it just fuel? And it also carries a huge supply of oxygen stored as a liquid, so it can burn fuel in space. It's so highly compressed that it turns into liquid. It's kind of like the cooking gas you use at home, stored as LPG, liquefied petroleum gas.
So, what causes fear of heights?
For starters, everyone has at least a little fear of heights, even I do. Didn't you feel butterflies during the rooftop gravity experiment? Or when I climbed that cliff to show you a knot? Or when I landed by helicopter on an oil platform or climbed a 120-meter ladder inside a wind power plant? Or when, okay, you get the point, right? That fear is natural. We're afraid of things that could harm us, especially when we're way up high. It's dangerous for humans. If you slip or fall, it could be fatal. The fear of heights has a name, acrophobia, and lots of other fears use the suffix phobia. Claustrophobia is the fear of closed spaces, like going into a homemade submarine. Arachnophobia is the fear of spiders. Hemophobia is the fear of blood. Coulrophobia is the fear of clowns. Except for clowns, all these are things that, when faced, genuinely scare people. Seeing blood, for example, signals something serious is happening. Still, we often use these words loosely. People might say they're claustrophobic just for being in a small space, but true phobias cause real terror. It's not just a little fear. A person can panic, start sweating cold, feel an urgent need to use the bathroom, lose their voice, and literally shake with fear. Phobias can be serious conditions, and their causes are varied, sometimes natural, sometimes not. You might fear heights, or it could stem from social trauma instead. Maybe some tragic event in the person's family or even in their country's history. And like with any mental health issue, treatment should be done with a psychologist, psychiatrist, and so on. It is possible to overcome exaggerated fears of certain things. A little fear of spiders, heights, small spaces, or blood is normal. But here's why people fear clowns. I owe you an explanation, and yes, there is one. Why are sea levels different? Shouldn't the entire ocean be flat like a swimming pool, all at the same level? Well, first of all, the Earth is round, so it can't be exactly like a pool. But still, couldn't it be a perfect sphere, with sea level exactly the same everywhere, smooth and even? But no, that's not how it works. When we measure Earth precisely, we find it's not a perfect sphere at all. A day isn't exactly 24 hours. A year isn't exactly 365 days. And Earth's orbit around the Sun isn't a perfect circle. Even the poles aren't fixed in one exact spot. And the same happens with sea level. Some places are lower, others are higher, and we can figure out a few reasons why. First, think about the tides. Imagine yourself in Panama between the Atlantic and the Pacific. When the tide rises, one ocean might react differently from the other because of its different shape. Then you've also got the wind, and you've got ocean currents, the flow of water, which also differ between oceans. But here's something really fascinating. Gravity also changes sea level. Earth's gravity isn't uniform, it varies from place to place. Some regions have denser rock underground, which creates stronger gravity. If you stepped on a scale there, it would show you way more. And in those regions, more water gathers, raising the local sea level. I actually had the same doubt once, so I called up Sergio Sacani and asked him, "Sacani, wait a second, would stronger gravity mean less water there or more?" He explained, and now it makes sense that more water accumulates there, like a magnet pulling metal. So stronger gravity attracts more water. Now here's another one. If we're in the 21st century, how come the year is 2025? Shouldn't it be 2100 and something if it's the 21st century? They don't seem to match, right? Great question. Let's go to the board. Let's go back to the start of time and think about how we began counting centuries. From year 1 to year 100, that's the first century. From year 101 to 200, that's the second century. From 200 to 300, that's the third century. From 301 to 400, that's the fourth century. And here's where it feels odd. If you're in the year 350, you're already in the fourth century. So the century is 4, but the year starts with 3. That's because the century is always one number ahead of the current year. Let's keep going. From 500 to 600, that's the 6th century. From 1001 to 1100, that's the 11th. That same oddity keeps happening all the way through. Look, year 1001 is already the 11th century because the millennium starts with X. If we jump ahead, because I'm not writing all the way to the 21st century here, if you take the year 2001 up to the year 2100, that's the 21st century. That's why here in the year 2025 it feels confusing. The year starts with 2000, but we're already in the 21st century. So to wrap up, our year 2025 falls within this interval between 2001 and 2100. It creates the false impression that we should be in the 20th century, since the digits here start with 20. Okay, I get it. We're in the 21st century. Now tell me, what's the origin of the phrase mala se malsa?
You say sem alsa, but ibere. I'd be embarrassed if you said where I'm from.
A lot of people have asked me if this voice is computer generated. But no, I just make it nasal and stick my tongue between my teeth. I created this character because I got fed up with annoying comments on the videos. I'm not sure, but it seems like a small percentage of viewers. Not you guys watching right now, but some people who seem to watch just to nitpick. Sure, our videos aren't perfect. There will always be the occasional mistake, but some people, if you say A, they complain you didn't say B. They just want to find flaws. Ever forgotten to mention something in a video? It's only 15 minutes long. You can't explain the whole world in one video. So the role of this character is to voice that annoying comment I know is gonna pop up. He asks it first and I answer it right away before anyone else can. In the end, I think it's actually cool because it clears up doubts a lot of people might have, but I do have one concern. Some might think this character only asks dumb questions, and that's not the case at all. I really like questions others see as silly. I believe there's something valuable hidden in them. It's in those questions that we find cool discoveries waiting to be explained. So pay attention to Beret's next questions. Answer them as if many think they're silly, but they're actually great, unlike the ones from Malasemalsa. Budemois ombinch do. He just likes to nitpick and blow small issues out of proportion. Now, about the moon. When we see the unlit side of the crescent, if we can see it, doesn't that mean there's some light there? Could it be Earth's reflection? Take this photo of a crescent moon. The bright part is obvious, but you can still faintly see the rest too. Here's a quick diagram I made with the sun, Earth, and moon.
But Beret, the sun is way bigger than Earth. In your drawing, it even looks like it's reaching the moon.
Yeah, I just sketched it quickly. It's just a simplified diagram to explain the idea. It's not to scale. Otherwise, the sun would be gigantic and impossible to draw. Didn't I say he complains about everything? Anyway, sunlight hits the Earth and it also hits the moon since its rays reach both. But of course, it can't light up the whole moon, only the half that's facing the sun. So when you look at the moon from Earth, you'll see one bright side lit by the sun and one dark side in shadow. That's when it's waxing or waning. But here's the detail. Some of the sunlight that hits Earth bounces back into space. Earth reflects light, and part of that light reaches the moon too. So just like here on Earth, where you can sometimes walk at night thanks to moonlight, on the moon's dark side, you could sometimes walk thanks to Earthlight. That would be Earthlight, right? The sunlight reflected off Earth and then reached the moon. Here's the detail. Earthlight hits the dark side of the moon, then reflects back off the moon and returns to Earth. And that's why we can see it. Pretty wild path, isn't it? Sunlight bounces off Earth, then off the moon, and finally makes it into your eyes. This phenomenon is explained here on page 22 of our book, Mysteries of the Universe. It's actually called ashen light because it looks kind of grayish. Click the link in the description to learn more about the book. Now, what about this? Viruses were discovered even when the first microscopes couldn't see them. That calls for a little history, right? First, let's clear up the difference between viruses and bacteria. They're completely different. A bacterium is a full cell. It eats, it has organelles, little organs inside the cell, it reproduces on its own and so on. Bacteria are complete organisms and can even live inside others. Viruses aren't like that. They're very simple and they depend on infecting a cell to reproduce and survive. A virus can't live or reproduce on its own. It always needs another living being. The size difference between bacteria and viruses is enormous. Bacteria are massively larger. That's why bacteria were discovered much earlier. We could see them long before viruses. Anthony van Leeuwenhoek. Try saying that. It's Dutch. Leeuwenhoek, I think that's how you pronounce it. Back in 1676, he was the first to see bacteria. That's why he's remembered as one of the discoverers of bacteria. He saw them after improving microscopes. He was busy studying these optical instruments. Viruses, on the other hand, were only discovered much later in 1892. And you might think, by then, microscopes were better, so they could finally see viruses, right? No, still not possible. They discovered viruses without ever seeing them. How? A biologist named Dmitry Ivanovsky studied a disease affecting tobacco plants. It made the leaves turn yellow and sickly. But it wasn't caused by bacteria. He made an extract from the leaves and filtered it through a filter that blocked nearly all known bacteria. But what came out the other side was still infectious. It still caused the disease. At that point, people realized there must be another type of microorganism, not bacteria, that caused illness. They called it a virus. The word actually comes from poison or harmful liquid. But back then, nobody really understood what was going on. It wasn't until the 1940s that the electron microscope was invented. And no, it's not like the microscope we have here at Manuel do Mundo with a little screen. Ours is just an optical microscope. It uses normal lenses where a camera captures the light and sends it to the screen. The electron microscope works differently. Instead of light, it uses a beam of electrons, shooting them at the sample you want to see. Then a sensor picks up the result. That way, we can see things way smaller than what an optical microscope could ever show. Manuel do Mundo even has a video about the electron microscope at Mauá. Pretty cool, right? Here's the link. Now, why aren't there bald Japanese people? I get this one all the time. I've answered it so often it's getting tiring. It's just that before we try to explain why something happens, we need to check if it really happens.
Are there really no bald Japanese people?
When I read that question, the first person who came to mind was Mr. Miyagi from Karate Kid. That's a 1984 movie that was popular when I was a kid. And everyone really liked Mr. Miyagi, the guy who taught karate to Daniel. A very charismatic and cool character. Mr. Miyagi was played by an actor born in the United States but of Japanese descent. His name was Pat Morita. He has passed away. And he was bald. So right there, the claim doesn't hold, because yes, there are bald Japanese people. That's totally normal. But wait, I just remembered something cool. About a month ago, I went with Mari, Helena, and Melissa to watch the new Karate Kid called Karate Kid Legends. I thought it was a really fun movie, especially for a remake. Or when you create a sequel to a famous movie that impacted so many lives. That's a big responsibility. You have to live up to the last movie, and I think this one does. It's really good. Even the boy who plays the lead doing the fight scenes is really talented. Honestly, the fights are way better, even better than Karate Kid, which I saw back in the 1980s. The script is pretty solid, okay? It's a movie for young audiences, so don't expect a super complex plot, but I thought it was worth the ticket. And in this version, the sensei, the one who teaches the boy how to fight, is Jackie Chan, a very famous guy that almost everyone knows. Watching it, I thought he looked about the same age as Pat Morita was back in the 1980s. But not as Mr. Miyagi, of course. Pat Morita, when he filmed the movie in 1984, was 51 years old. Jackie Chan, when he filmed this new one, was 70. So he was almost 20 years older than Pat Morita. But honestly, in my opinion, he looks much younger and healthier. Maybe people are aging differently now. What do you think if you've seen both movies? If the country's name is New Zealand, then where is Zealand? That's one of those questions that seems silly, but is actually really interesting. If a place is called New Something, then the original must have existed first. Like New York in the United States is named after the city of York in the United Kingdom, or Nova Friburgo in Rio de Janeiro is named after the city of Fribourg in Switzerland. Or Novo Hamburgo in Rio Grande do Sul is named after Hamburg, Germany. So New Zealand, where is the original Zealand? The first European to arrive in New Zealand, an island near Australia, was a Dutch navigator. His name was Abel Tasman, and in 1642 he reached the island.
And yes, it's because of him that the neighboring island is called Tasmania. Cool, right?
And here's the link. In the Netherlands, there's a province, basically a state called Zeeland. So New Zealand was named after that province of Zeeland in the Netherlands. Member question here. We always save a question for the members, and members here at Manuel do Mundo get early access to the videos.
We release them early for members so they can comment and interact with each other.
They watch the video exclusively before it's released to everyone. One cool thing is that we set a really low fee to become a member of Manuel do Mundo. It's $1.99. That's the lowest price we can set, just to make it easier for you.
Ibere, why is it that when we pinch our nose and eat something we can't taste it? Shout out to Murillo.
When we take a bite of picanha, for example, our tongue can only sense 5 tastes: sweet, salty, bitter, sour, and umami. If only the mouth were involved, food would have almost no taste. But the flavor of food isn't formed just by taste. It's also formed by what the nose perceives, and not just from sniffing food. When you put it in your mouth and start chewing, you break it down and gases are released. Inside your head, those gases travel through a passage and reach your nose from the inside. And then you smell the food from inside your own head. 80% of the flavor of food comes from smell, not taste. It's detected by your nose, not your mouth, and your nose processes it differently. Our nose is like a chemistry lab. It's extremely sensitive. It can pick up the tiniest differences. To give you an idea, the most recent studies say we can detect about 1 trillion different smells. And here's something cool I've mentioned before on Manual du Mundo. Whenever you smell something, it means molecules from that thing actually reached your nose. So the smell of dog poop means particles of dog poop are literally entering your body. Now, let's get to the question that inspired this video and made you click. How does a phone know where your finger is touching? When I was a kid, there were already some touch-sensitive touch screens. But they were terrible because you had to press down hard and the screen would sink in a little. That type of screen was called a resistive screen. It had a film in front, and when you pressed it, the film made electrical contact, and that's how it detected your touch. But it partially blocked your view and always looked kind of cloudy. It had a lot of problems because if you pressed too hard on the screen, it could puncture, tear, and stop working. It wasn't pleasant to use. You really had to press hard for it to respond. Very different from a modern phone, where you don't even need to touch the screen completely, and it already senses you. As far as I know, that kind of screen detected only one single touch point. You couldn't use gestures like zooming in on a photo, but now we use a totally different kind of screen. Let's understand how it works. This really crazy thing here is a plasma ball. That little core inside is generating energy at thousands of volts, extremely high voltage. And that energy travels through the gas inside, turning it into plasma. The gas gains or loses electrons, becomes ionized, and lets energy flow through it. There's a glass cover around it, but if I put my hand on it, the energy tries to flow toward my hand. It can't actually reach me because of the glass, so I don't get shocked. Since my body conducts electricity, it acts like a ground wire where the energy wants to escape. If I pick up something that doesn't conduct electricity well, like this notebook, you can barely see the effect. But if I use a highly conductive screwdriver, then a lot of energy immediately tries to escape through it. Keep this experiment in mind and look at the phone screen just below the glass, though invisible. There are countless tiny wires. Some run vertically, others horizontally. These transparent wires are invisible to us. But they carry energy, and they work sort of like the center of a plasma ball. I'm simplifying here just to make it easier to understand. When you touch the screen with your finger, it's like I'm touching the plasma ball. The energy in those wires wants to escape through your finger, but it can't because of the glass layer. Still, that movement of electrons is detected by the phone. The phone has sensors for that. So, if I touch here, for example, the phone detects that my finger is at column C and row 3. It's like a map with coordinates, latitude and longitude, like the game Battleship. And the phone knows. Barry pointed exactly to this row and column. Putting my finger in 2 places isn't a problem. It notices my finger trying to steal energy from columns D and B and from rows 3 and 5. You've probably already noticed that if you put, for example, a pencil or a regular eraser on the phone, it won't work. It's for the same reason as with the plasma ball. If the object doesn't conduct electricity, the electrons here won't try to move into it. But if it's a pencil wrapped in aluminum foil, for example, then you can use your phone just fine, let's be honest, right? An explanation like this, even with a plasma ball, if that's not worth a like, but hey, I did say it was a simplified explanation. If that's not worth a like, I don't know what is.